virtual Lunch and Learn. I hope you all are enjoying a lunch wherever you are remotely. My peanut butter and jelly sandwich is over here on my table. But again, we're really appreciative of you guys joining us today for this Science and Research Careers Lunch and Learn as we transition to life in virtual reality. So today we are going to chat with several folks who have willingly decided to spend their lunch with us today and talk through their career path, discuss what they do on a day-to-day basis, and just answer some questions that we've developed on the Career Center side. And then students, as you're listening, I'm going to encourage you to utilize that chat function. If you see that in the bottom right, as you're thinking of questions as our participants introduce themselves and also answer some of the questions that I have prepared, please start jotting down those questions, typing them into that chat frame. That's how we'll go ahead and take questions from the audience. To get us started and to work through probably about the first half of this, we're going to just go ahead and go through a few questions we've come up with to start conversation, and then I will open it up to the audience here in a few minutes. All right, and again, we've noted in here, if you don't mind, and if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and mute yourself if you are an attendee. That way we don't have any kind of weird rustling or anything like that in the background as we're all listening. So I'm going to go ahead and take myself off camera, but allow our panelists to go ahead and get started by introducing yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background, what your role is today, and where you work. And Sarah, if you don't mind getting us started.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Okay, hey, yeah, I'm Sarah. I recently started as a research technician over at Atrium Health. So basically, my day-to-day is just coming in, doing experiments. I have my own project I'm working on. We're still hanging around. We're kind of one of the last labs left around here. Everyone else is working from home, but we're kind of doing wet lab stuff, so we can't really work from home right now. So we're kind of waiting to see what they'll tell us about that.
Awesome. And Sarah, would you mind sharing what your academic background is? Where'd you go to school? Although I know where you went to. What you studied, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, taking it way back, I did high school at a magnet school in North Carolina, Central Academy of Technology and Arts, and I was in the biotechnology. So with that, that's where I really got interested in science and wanted a career in research specifically. So then I went over to UNC Charlotte for my undergrad. And I chose that because I knew that they would have labs that I could potentially get undergraduate research experience in. So I did my bachelor's there, and then I did my master's in the same lab that I was working in undergrad, which I just graduated in December from that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Kate, you're up.
Okay. Everybody can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, super. So I am a microbiologist here at Microban Products Company. We do all kinds of work in antimicrobials specifically. So my main job day to day is testing the antimicrobials in the products that are made here. And Angie is one of our engineers, so she'll tell you a little bit more about the products that we make. But our engineers make products, and then we test them to make sure that they perform as prescribed, so they are maintaining a lowering of the population of bacteria and fungus. Before I started working at Microban, I worked in research in academia. I worked at UNC Charlotte for a while in Christino's lab, and he's gone, he's not there anymore, but in the biology department there at UNC Charlotte, and was a research technician. And then I also worked at the University of Connecticut Health Center and doing research there as well. And I got my master's at the University of Virginia and my undergrad at NC State in chemistry. And then when I went to UVA, that was when I started working in microbiology. When I was at UVA, I studied HIV and packaging and things like that, and then worked in cell biology mostly at UNC Charlotte. So I've been interested in science ever since I was a kid. I had a really great science teacher when I was in 7th grade, and she sort of sparked my love for science, and I've just been very, very happy that I've been able to work in science, and specifically microbiology, for about the last 20 years or so.
Wonderful, thank you. Peter, you're up next.
Hey, how's it going? I also work for Microban, obviously. I do the analytical side of things while Kate does the microbiology. Basically, my story, I grew up in New York. I went to a SUNY school, just a SUNY State University in New York, small state school. I did chemistry there, and upon graduating, I did, I guess, 2 years of like synthetic chemistry, like research for the school. Then I talked to one of my buddies from college. He had moved down to North Carolina, lives in Charlotte, so I moved down to here with him. I got started down here at a kind of over-the-counter OTC pharma place called Besco. And again, they do stuff like Centrum vitamins, cough drops, a lot of just kind of basic over-the-counter stuff you can buy at any kind of grocery store, CVS. I worked night shifts over there, didn't love that whole scene, so I started pursuing a different career, well, same career, but different options. So I transitioned over to Microban. I've been here for, I guess, close to 4 years now. Again, I do the analytical side of things, a lot of like quality control. So basically, we'll get products in and I'll test them again for efficacy, making sure that our right amount of additive is in all the products. Yeah, kind of my job here.
All right, thanks, Peter. Last but not least, Angie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Angie Johnson. I am also with Microban on the engineering side of things, as Kate mentioned. I have been here only 2 years. Prior to that, many years ago, I actually went to NC State and got degrees in chemical engineering and polymer chemistry. I actually interned for Procter & Gamble and did manufacturing while I was in college, and eventually took a job with DuPont when I graduated. I spent a couple years at DuPont, then went to Underwriters Labs and did product safety certifications for about 7 years. Then I actually went to the federal government and worked for the CDC and did chemical and biological warfare research, as well as firefighter fatalities. And my lab also certified the respirators that everybody is buying and selling and being insane about right now. A couple of years ago, I actually moved back to North Carolina. I'm from North Carolina. Moved back to North Carolina and spent 4 years doing laundry care with Electrolux, about 4 years of writing software and designing clothes dryers. And about 2 years ago, I came over to Microban. And my role here, I actually am the technical manager for North America. And so I'm responsible for making sure that our customers get the right additives, that they know how to incorporate them into their products, that they work correctly, and that, you know, we help them out with all of their marketing and all of their technical information. And you know, Kate and Peter are two of our lab groups that make all of that possible. So it's definitely an interesting place to work.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for your introductions. Let's go ahead and jump in. First question for you all. Describe your current job and tell us what a normal, I put that in quotation marks, what a normal day looks like for each of you. Here, if you want to go ahead and get started.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about this job is every day looks a little bit different. So normal day, it's about, 9 to 5, kind of whenever you want to, that's kind of flexible. If you want to come in later, if something's running late, you can do that. But most days I'll come in, I usually have an idea of what I'm going to be doing experiment-wise, usually figure that out kind of the week before. So lately it's been a lot of Western blots, doing some transformations, so different techniques, but it's all relating back to my project, which is working on different receptors. And in regards to leukemia, we are a translational lab, so we do have access to patient samples, which is another thing I really like about this job, having that translational aspect. So yeah, different experiments throughout the day, different amounts of research, trying to find new protocols or new methods that might be useful. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of it.
Great, thank you. Kate, how about you?
Yes, so I normally have am given a specific amount of testing that is being asked of. So Angie would be asking me to run tests for her, so and other engineers. So I would have tests, and I would set up those tests and look at them and start the test. And then most of the tests that we do take about 3 days. So there is an initial step of putting bacteria or fungus onto a test piece, and then we wait for a set amount of time to see if it acts on, if the antimicrobials in that test piece act on the bacteria. And then we recover that, and then when we count, essentially, bacteria and look at how much bacteria is reduced or grows on a particular piece. Now, that's the testing side, and that is a large portion of what I do. Another portion of what I do is I look at test methods that are currently available and are being used in our industry, and I look and see if there's something that is going to be more helpful for our engineers. I also try and write technical pieces for our engineers and marketing people, so they'll be able to sort of present the work that we do to our customers. Right now, I'm working on trying to make a synthetic sweat, so it's so we can look and study how things smell, and if we can reduce the odors in different things. And so I get to make things smell bad, and then ask people to smell them for me and see what they think. So that is a little bit of what I do. So the days are relatively regimented, but there's definitely different things each day that happen too. I'm gonna let Peter go.
Yeah, pretty similar. I always come in and you kind of see what's on your, what's called like the testing record. So basically all the samples that are submitted, you kind of get an idea of what needs to be done. So with a certain kind of sample, you have a specific test method that you're going to run. So that's pretty much how I start my morning. You figure out kind of what you're going to do for the day. And obviously with a lot of instrumentation, you do need to kind of plan your day around who's using the instruments, what you're going to be running, how long that takes. So kind of like planning out your day, get your sample started. And then as with any company, the longer you've been here, you kind of pick up different other roles here and there. So kind of my other roles at the company are working on a lot of the SOPs and methods, procedures that we have. So as far as like updating them, rewriting them, writing new methods, as well as taking kind of a safety role here at the company. So I lead like the safety committee. We have like monthly meetings, and we kind of go over what we need to do to make the company a safer place, and as well as like our waste disposal kind of process here. I'm in charge of that as well.
Awesome. Angie, last but not least.
My days actually can vary quite a bit. For good or bad, a lot of my days are spent on the computer, whether it be working with our other people that are located internationally, and I may have an early call, I may have a late call if China needs us. I may be on the phone at 8, 10 o'clock at night. But most of my days tend to be on the computer, whether I'm analyzing data that Kate and Peter have run for me, or I'm preparing reports for our customers. But I do have the days that I love where I get to be back in the lab. We actually have a full-size injection molding machine here that we can make parts with. So the days that I get to grab a wrench and get dirty and break that thing apart or work on it are some of my favorite days. We do a lot of different testing in my laboratory where we may have a panel of caulk, like you would use in your bathroom, up to see when it's going to grow fungus. And we have a shower tester, and it may run for 6 months. We also make concrete. We're doing a lot of concrete research right now, so we make concrete in my lab. We are, right now, I just walked in, and we are sifting some different powders that we're using for rotomolding. So the days that I get to spend time in the lab, I absolutely love. Another component of my job is when one of our customers is having an issue, or it could be a brand new customer. We recently launched a brand new washing machine that has Microban treatment in it, and I was very, very fortunate to get to go to GE several times and help them to learn how to incorporate that, and they are located in Kentucky. But I also frequently, almost on a weekly basis, if not more frequently, get to talk to their molders in China, and just to make sure that everything is going well. So, sometimes I'm in the office, sometimes in the lab, and a lot of my time is spent on the computer, though.
All right. Thank you all for those snapshots into your days. Talk to us about what the biggest challenge was that you all faced when you first got started in your career. And if Sarah, you want to go ahead and take the first stab at this one.
Yeah, so I think I'm probably the earliest in my career too, out of everyone. So I think the biggest challenge, first of all, the first time I was in a lab was kind of that learning curve of it's very different from any academic lab you've usually been in, learning a bunch of new techniques, learning the science behind all of them and applying them to your actual samples. But now, I mean, because I did do all of that in undergrad, I mean, starting this job here, the biggest learning curve has really been learning, I mean, where things are because I'm familiar with most of the techniques. I think learning how to understand the science behind things, learning how to read primary literature at first was, you know, probably a bit of a challenge. But overall now, I feel like this was a really comfortable job to start because of the background that I did have.
I mean, I think like Sarah, I started in sort of a more research lab, academic lab, and all the same sort of things. Reading primary literature can be quite difficult, and it's sort of verbose and very kind of hard to sort of get into. And then learning techniques and all. But then switching to industry from academia was a big change also. Totally different mindset and way of thinking about things and going about things. You know, in research, there's a certain impetus to publishing and getting information, but it's a little bit more relaxed. Industry is not that way. You know, it's all about getting things done and making money, and so it's a very different sort of and I think that was really one of the biggest challenges. And so I think, you know, it's just structuring your day around what has to be done and still finding time to, you know, because I still like to read papers like that Sarah is doing and researching and things like that, because I like to keep up with what's going on. And I mean, that becomes even more vitally important in times like right now where, you know, a lot of new research is coming out and you want to know what's going on. And while I'm sure everyone's researching coronavirus right now, you know, I'm trying to research what's going on in the actual publications like Nature and Science and things like that. So, I mean, it's really important to sort of keep up with that, but it's hard to balance everything. So I think that's one of the big challenges is sort of balancing that industry side of getting work done, but still keeping up with everything.
So yeah, there's a bunch of challenges I faced, especially at my first job. My first job down here was like my first real kind of chemistry job, like quality control. When I worked at Bestco, that was the pharma place. Basically, again, I mentioned I started on night shift. I pretty much was thrown on that shift about after like 7 days of training. They put me on night shift, and there was no one there like that I could ask for help, ask questions, something like that. So it's pretty much like you really do learn quickly, like kind of like that do or die mentality. There's no one that's really going to babysit you when you do kind of work for these companies. You want to be your own best resource, figuring stuff out for yourself. So that comes from, especially on my side, with the amount of analytical kind of instruments that you have. So you have like the FTIR, GCMS, HPLC. You want to be really like know how to work all these, like know the ins and outs of these instruments, as well as one of the challenges is all the different software. So there's a lot of different manufacturers for these instruments. So your PerkinElmer, your Shimadzu, you do need to know like how these kind of softwares run for each of these instruments. Getting them to talk to the computer sometimes can be an issue. It really comes down to a lot of like being detail oriented. And again, as I explained, like being your best resource. If something does happen to the machine, kind of do like that process flow, figure out what's probably wrong, see what you can do to fix it, kind of do your best job before you do have to call in one of these techs or reps to come in and kind of like help with that stuff. So I would say that those kind of challenges, you quickly learn that, yeah, you can do a lot more than you think you can, I think. and just really taking that step back, understanding kind of what's going on, and yeah, using that knowledge that you have from university, from college, and applying it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I will add to some of that. I'm going to challenge each one of you, especially as you get closer to graduation, to really think about, kind of step back and look at a lot of things. So when I graduated, I didn't know if I wanted to do research. I didn't know if I wanted to do manufacturing. As Kate had mentioned, industry, the transfer to that back and forth is different. I would challenge each one of you to really think about what you want to do every day. If you find it more challenging to be in manufacturing, I actually loved manufacturing, but as a brand new engineer, you're on call 24/7. And as Peter mentioned, you may start on third shift. You may start in, if the plant's working on Christmas, you're working on Christmas. And so, think about those types of things. But if what you love is manufacturing and what you love is massive amounts of data analysis and running statistics and making things work, then you think about that. If you're more focused on the research, think about that. I've done both in my career. So what is going to make you happy when you go to work every day? Because you're going to do it every day, and it's not, unfortunately, like school, where you can take an hour or two break in the afternoon to do something or to go, go somewhere. You're at work, and it's probably not an 8-hour job. It might be a 9 or 10-hour job a day, so you better love it, or you burn out really quickly. So think about, what you want to do. And the other thing I would challenge you to do is whatever field you're in, look at where the opportunities are. I had PhD scientists that worked for me with the Fed. They really had not progressed in their career, but they loved it. They wrote papers, they did their research, they got funding, and they were happy being exactly where they were. But if you're someone that really wants to, to climb up the ladder, to strive for that, then you might want to, think about how you get to that. The other thing to think about is what's actually available. Sometimes those really good research spots are not, prevalent. They're not a lot of them available. So, think about not only what do you want to do today, but what do you want to do in 5 and 10 years. And the other thing I will say is do not take a job that you absolutely hate. I've seen so many people do that. If you hate it, I know Peter said he got out. If you hate it, there are opportunities. You just have to work hard to find them and find something that you engage with. Find something that, like I say, that makes you happy going to work every day, because you're going to spend a lot of your time, a lot of your life there. So, be thinking about that. And if you come out of the gate and you pick, you think, okay, I want to do manufacturing, and you get 6 a.m. calls or whatever the case may be, like Peter did, you switch and you rethink how you want to do it. So don't be afraid to follow what you want to do, but put some thought into it before, because changing jobs is not easy. It can be done, and I've done it, but put some thought into what's going to make you happy every day, and it's going to get you to wherever you want to go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed that job for the most part, and I learned a lot. It was like that CGMP, which is like that good manufacturing processing. I learned, again, how to be very detail-oriented, how to take great notes, how to keep a lab notebook. I learned like a lot of great stuff, but after being like on night shift for a year, trying it out, it wasn't something that worked for my overall lifestyle. Especially like it's really hard to hang out with friends. It's hard to go to the post. It's hard to do very normal stuff. Some people are night owls. There's one guy who worked on the shift. He absolutely loved working nights. He loved having the opportunity to be home, to put his kids on the bus and get them off the bus. So there are a lot of benefits, but yeah, it definitely has to fit with your life. And again, if it doesn't fit with your life exactly, take what you can from it, and don't quit right away. Figure out your plan prior to leaving these types of companies. Really make sure you have interviews lined up. Figure that kind of stuff out before you just up and leave. So.
Agree. Completely agree. And also, another thing you want to think about is travel. Some jobs have an enormous amount of travel. Some jobs have no travel. So if you're somebody that really likes to travel and be away from home, when I was with the Fed, I traveled 50 weeks one year out of 52 weeks. And I was so burned out, and my mom was furious because I didn't come home for Thanksgiving. So, if it's something you want to do, then do it. But like Peter says, it made it really hard for me to have a life outside of work. So it's something that was fun when I was young, but I didn't want to do it long term. So be thinking about that as you think about your career.
Thank you guys. This is all fantastic advice. Now, the next question I have for you, when you first started in a new role, whether it's your current job or thinking back to the very beginning of your career, where did you go to find helpful resources to support you when you got started in that position?
Yeah, so going back in undergrad when I knew that I wanted some hands-on research experience, I went to my biology professors and I asked them kind of the best way to approach that. And I said what I was interested in. I wanted to study viruses. So one of my professors directed me towards a lab that was studying viruses. So then I was able to go and ask that PI about research opportunities, which worked out really well. And I ended up doing undergraduate research in that lab. So talking to professors is really helpful. Throughout my master's, when I was trying to figure out what kind of career I wanted to get into, everything that Angie and Peter's speaking to is so important. The amount of informational interviews that I did asking people to tell me about their jobs, I mean, I can't tell you how many I did, because I think that is so important to kind of get that perspective and that insight. And then last semester also, one of the biology PhD students started a club called the Career Ladder Program. And a big part of that was organizing informational interviews for students that were interested in different career options to kind of hear what jobs are out there, what opportunities are out there. And then finally starting in this new position, my coworkers have been the people that I've, leaned on the most heavily, since they're the ones that have the most resources and know kind of how things run. So help is very close by and near you. And then of course Google is, you can't go wrong Googling things.
Yeah, just very similar with Sarah. When I was in undergrad, I was a chemistry major, but I was a microbiology minor, so I was really interested in the life sciences. And I did speak with the departments and my advisor at college. I did several summer research programs. One at Glaxo Wellcome, which is not Glaxo anymore. It's what is it? Those pharmaceutical companies change names all the time, but it was Glaxo at the time. And then I did another summer research opportunity at Wake Forest, and so just summers doing research were great as an undergrad. And again, I found those through my university. And then when I was researching graduate schools, the web was new back when I was an undergrad, but lots of research with looking at what was going on and going to the universities and speaking with professors to try to find which university was best for me. I ended up at UVA because I really liked the research that was being done. There was there's a retroviral center there, so I was very much interested in studying HIV. So, but when I got to graduate school, we had to go through some rotations to sort of try to find the lab that we wanted to be in. So, so I went through 3 rotations, and just speaking with the graduate students, the research techs, the professors there, trying to learn what life felt like in that particular lab was really important. And then I picked my lab. Again, I ended up choosing kind of my first rotation, because I just loved the HIV research, and so I ended up staying there for my graduate work. And then afterwards, each lab, you go in and you learn from the people that are there, and that. Plus, also, if you have a group of friends from undergrad or from graduate school that are in a similar situation than you, just having someone to lean on there is also very important.
Yeah. They kind of touched on kind of the resources at your job. I'll kind of touch on like the resources I used when I was looking for a job, because again, I'm moving from New York down to North Carolina, kind of like that process that I took. So basically, I knew I was moving to Charlotte, so I reached out to, you're pretty lucky these days as far as like it's not just posting like your job resume on like monster.com anymore. You do have these like amazing kind of like headhunters and like people who really help you kind of find these jobs in this area. So I had lined up like 3 or 4 interviews kind of for like the week I was moving down to make sure, you know, I had something to do immediately when I came down. And another great kind of resource that I use, one of my buddies mentioned this to me, it's totally acceptable to, you know, use LinkedIn as a resource. You can totally reach out, say you're interested into a particular company. Everyone's pretty friendly and nice. So feel free to like reach out to message certain people from the company, especially if they are going to be working in the lab or kind of in your department, and kind of like Kate said, get a feel for kind of the interactions that happen on a day-to-day basis, the workflow, that kind of stuff. I think that's very beneficial. Each place that I've worked definitely has a different feel. The people, the atmosphere, the workload that you get. So I think that's like really important going in. As far as, you know, when you get that job, you guys have college as a resource. Your university will still be there for you. I continue to talk to the dean of science and engineering for my school on a fairly regular basis. He's who I did my kind of senior like internship with. But also I'm sure your college has like a ton of different databases. Mine, I'm lucky to still have access to from university using my like alumni email address. I'm sure there's probably something pretty similar for that for you. So I always use that as a resource. And then again, as everyone else mentioned, when you get on these jobs, people at the company will help you, and if you have questions, stuff like that. So yeah.
So Kate and Peter, well, actually everybody has already touched on this, but can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
I got a weird signal over here. No, so really it's the key to surviving your first job and surviving all of your jobs is building your network. And I would say do that inside and outside of your company. And like Peter said, you guys are lucky. You're coming out of college with LinkedIn. I mean, I'm kind of with Kate. The internet was just getting really started when I came out. But you know, develop your LinkedIn profiles, because we look at those every day. We do not hire anybody without looking at the LinkedIn profile. It is a great way to build your brand and build your network. So you have a built-in network with your peers in college. You know, link to their profiles, get your network started, and if you link to 10 people and they all link to 10 people, it grows really fast, and you just open up your networking capabilities. And I got a feeling that most of you are probably 1 or 2 from us, which is kind of funny. You don't realize how close you are to so many people. So I would say, you know, build your network outside of work. And I've got friends that went on to do so many different jobs, and I love kind of seeing what they do. And I will, you know, I have industrial hygienist friends. If I have a question, I can contact them. So that is crucial to surviving in today's world. And then the network on the inside of the company, you build those relationships, you know. So I'd love to go ask Kate or Peter, either one, questions. I mean, I think I have a great working relationship with them. And I know I give Peter a rough time about his procedures, but we work on them, and you end up with a much better process. So build those, you know, find your internal leaders, your natural leaders, and build relationships with them, because those are the people that are going places, and those are the people you want to be, you know, you want to have them on your team, and you want to have connections to. And I will say that your first job out of college, you're going to get thumped. It just happens. I started in manufacturing, and I was telling people that had been on the lines for 20, 30 years at DuPont how to do their jobs. So, you know, learn those soft skills, build those relationships, learn how to communicate, and not just be a new college grad. You're going to be much more successful, and you're going to be a lot happier. So just develop those internal and external relationships.
Fantastic. Thank you all. We had a question come in from one of our participants. This student says, I am very interested in making a career out of genetic research, such as disorders such as Down syndrome or cystic fibrosis. After I obtain a bachelor's degree in biology, what are the next steps in regards to graduate school or working towards your PhD? You all can speak towards that, and or just generally speaking, what are the general education requirements or advanced degrees required for your industry? That would be great.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I think that as far as kind of the first step would be then, getting into graduate school and wanting that career path. I think any research experience is going to be kind of what can push you forward the most. So working on getting that if you don't already have it, or if you have it, just really playing up on your resume these skills that you do have and that you can use, showing that you're comfortable in a lab and in a research setting, I guess, I think would be the most beneficial perhaps. Maybe taking, some time off between while you're applying for graduate schools to build up lab skills, trying to get a research tech position somewhere, volunteering in lab, just trying to get your foot in the door into a lab, I think would be the most beneficial.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with Sarah. When you're looking, so obviously undergrad is important, but you're going to have to go outside. So whether or not you go to graduate school or not is sort of something you're going to need to talk with people about. It really kind of depends on what you want to do. So there are research technicians out there in labs right now that have their bachelor's degrees, and they are very happy, and they work in the lab, and they're in the hands of it. So I think it really depends on what you want to do. So if you are a person who wants to sort of be at the bench top and hands-on, an undergrad or a master's degree is perfect. If you really want to be writing papers and directing research, you are going to have to get your PhD, and so that's something you need to think about. But the best way you can find out what you want to do is just like Sarah said. Go talk to a professor, research at your school, and what research is going on in the biology department. And when you find somebody whose research you think is really exciting, go talk to them, send them an email, see if you can look around their lab, ask if you can volunteer in their lab, ask if you can help out. And when I was at UNC Charlotte, we had several students, undergraduate students, that came into the lab and worked. We even had a student who had graduated with a physics degree, and he was interested in biology, and he came back in to volunteer in the biology department. And he actually works at Microban now, so I got him a job here. So, but definitely finding out, and you may go into that lab and you may work in there for a month or two and be like, oh my gosh, I really don't like this. But you really got to get, jump in and get your feet wet and see what you think. And then, when you're there, you may say, oh my gosh, I want to be at this bench top doing PCR and Western blots like Sarah's doing and cell culture for my entire life because I love this and I've got great hands and this is everything that I've ever wanted to do. But you may say, I want to do this experiment and I want to do this experiment and I want to do this experiment. And you're not going to be able to choose your experiments as much if you're not directing it. So then, okay, I want to go to graduate school so I can get my master's degree or I can get my PhD and I can direct research. So those are things, but the best thing you can do, research what's going on at your university, talk to some of the professors, and then see if you can get in a lab.
I'd like to throw in one thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Peter.
No, you're fine. I was just going to say, I don't know how much more insight I could give than Kate right there. I think that was a very good explanation. So.
Yes, I do as well. I just wanted to throw out for any of you that are looking for a specific place, usajobs.gov is the federal government's website for jobs, and they hire a lot of postdocs and R&D people. So, there's different, the CDC, NIOSH, National Institute of Health. They're all the different groups, and they work in different areas. So if you do want to be specialized, they do hire a lot of postgrads. And once you have a federal postdoc on your resume, it's almost like you can find a job anywhere. So that I saw that a lot of people use that opportunity to develop very, very good careers.
Great. Thank you all. Another question from the audience just came up. Can you talk about what opportunities for advancement might look like in with your specific employers, or just generally speaking, how that works in this industry?
Yeah, just starting, so I don't know exactly how the pipeline functions, but what I do know is, so where I'm at, there's different tiers of research technicians. So if you're coming straight out with a bachelor's with not a lot of research experience, you would probably start as a research technician 1. If you gain experience, you can move into research technician 2. I don't know how many phases of research technician there are here or at other companies, but I do know that you can go all the way up to project manager, and just the longer you stay here. I know one woman that works here, she's been here for I think 6 years now. She started off as a research tech and now she's a project manager. So there, and she did her master's while she was here and got part of it paid for by the company, which was wonderful. So she does get a lot of say in what she's doing. Really driving her project forward is on publications, going to conferences. And then we have other individuals here who are postdocs. So, you know, working on their postdocs here and then going elsewhere. And then PIs that are running different labs here. They can even go to head whole groups, whole research groups. So there is definitely room to move around and up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on where you are. The size of the company, if you're like, so what Sarah talked about is very common in academia and sort of that sort of side of research. In an industrial setting, in a company setting, it really kind of depends on what size the company is. So you work for a large company like a pharmaceutical or something like that, there's going to be a lot more space to move up because there's going to be a lot more tiers of people. When you work for a smaller company, it's really going to depend on, you know, where people are. So you're not going to become the manager of the microbiology lab unless the current manager of the microbiology lab leaves, and then you know, or chemistry. And then the other thing is sometimes you can say, well, you know, I've learned what I wanted to learn as a microbiologist. You know, maybe I'd like to be in sales, you know, now, and so, you know, try something new, and obviously that would offer a chance for moving up and on and things like that. But I think it really sort of depends on the company size.
Yeah. So we're getting in trouble for sitting so close together. So yeah, I'll touch on that. Exactly what Sarah said. Just coming out, you're gonna just be like a tech, a research tech, basically. Again, it's definitely not glamorous. I remember when I first started, you're literally just doing pHs, some titrations, really basic stuff. I know that I'll speak more to my first job because it was a much larger lab than I have now. As she said, there was a research tech, and then you became like a chemist 1, chemist 2, chemist 3. If you moved on from there, again, same kind of idea, project manager, lab manager, you're probably more in charge of like the procedures that people are running. Maybe you're designating out the schedules for the day. You're overseeing the lab. You do the troubleshooting. You're also more on the, because in most companies, again, it's not just the lab. So we do have our labs here, but there's the marketing team, the finance team, all that stuff. So you're probably going to those meetings. You're probably in those meetings and really seeing like the company on a whole level, and then you have to designate down from there to your employees pretty much. As far as this company goes, again, there's only 2 analytical chemists here, me and the other lady. So basically, if I want to advance in the company, I need to be, and the same for you guys need to be willing to kind of step up and pick up other roles. So as I said, I'm probably not really going anywhere as far as, again, I can still get promoted from like chemist 1 to chemist 2 to chemist 3, kind of like that, like internal promotions, but I'm not really going anywhere tier-wise or maybe taking on any other additional responsibilities per se. But we did have like our EHS, so environmental health and safety guy. He retired a few years ago, so I kind of stepped up and took on those kind of roles. So again, what that kind of meant for the company was I go around and do building safety checks, audits of the labs. I'm in charge of the chemical inventory, in charge of our waste disposal process. So there is always ways for advancement in companies, but a lot of times they're not going to be, I don't know, it's hard to say. Sometimes I guess they are handed to you, but they're not always going to be like just, handed to you and kind of served up. You kind of have to show your willingness to kind of fill into these certain roles. It might not be exactly what you expected, but there definitely is room for improvement if you find it and you want to work for it, Angie?
Let me get unmuted. Sorry, I can't seem to get the mute button to work. No, so this may not be a popular answer, but I beg you to never ask somebody that's giving you an interview that question. That is one of the things that is pretty much hated across the board if you're interviewing. Don't ask them what the opportunities for advancement are. They are looking for you for a role, and they want to know why you fit that role. They don't want to know that you don't really want that role, you want another role. So just be really careful. I would caution you to really not ask that question. A way to rephrase that, if your interview might be, I'm looking to build this skill set, or I have this skill set and I think it matches your role, I would like to develop further. So that would be my first feedback, is just don't ever ask if there's opportunities for advancement. If you have done your homework on LinkedIn and on the company's website, on their social media pages, you will understand if there's places for advancement. And I think Kate touched on this. If it's a bigger company and there are a lot of levels, you can probably move up through that company. As Peter said, if you're willing to take on new roles and you're willing to stick your neck out and raise your hand and look for somebody to take on a new opportunity or a new job duty. So, but then I'll also caution you, as Kim said, or as somebody said, the companies are getting flatter these days. There's not as many ways to jump up. And if you're trying to jump up, you're probably looking to jump up into the role, as Kate said. You're looking for if you want to be the lab manager, it's your boss, and you're looking to take their job. And unless they leave, you're not going to go anywhere. So in today's climate, and this is definitely probably not the popular answer, but I found it to be very true, you may need to look at a job change. If you really, or if you've learned all you can learn in one position and you really developed your skills, and you've wrapped your arms around everything you can learn from that role, then you may need to look at another role to grow another skill set that you want to do, or for a different position. Most people kind of don't just move up to managers in the same company. You kind of have to look at a different organization to take a really large step in your career. Just kind of what I've experienced and my feedback. But definitely don't go into an interview and ask for the opportunities for advancement. That will probably, I know for me, it would probably just get you, it would probably X you off my list. Sorry.
Honestly, it was good.
Yeah.
Angie, to kind of hop off of what you said there, I think another way when we're thinking about an interview and chatting with opportunities for next steps or growth, I think a good way to phrase it would be asking about what kind of professional development opportunities exist for that position that you're applying for. Do you agree?
I absolutely agree. Ask them, say, I think my skill set matches your role, but I'm still early in my career. What opportunity does the company have for me to develop my, for my personal development? How do you support your employees? And I think that is a much better question.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to ask one last question from the panelists and leave time if anybody else has any questions they want to make sure we ask our panelists today. Please type those into the chat. But my last question is, what specific advice do you have for someone who's interested in your profession or your organization? How should they move forward from the vantage point they are today as a college student?
I think it kind of circles back to, what most all of us have said is get what experience you can while you're in college or, your university. That'll really propel you forward. Reach out. People do really want to help you. I mean, everyone that I've ever reached out to on LinkedIn or through email has been incredibly helpful and generous with their time for the most part. So particularly at Atrium, I know they have a lot of volunteer opportunities or just reaching out there. So I really think networking is honestly probably the most helpful, as well as working on for a position like mine with lab skills. Any kind of lab experience you can get is really going to be, I think, what sets you up.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with Sarah there. So in a lab position like Sarah's in, I'd say also, never be afraid to talk to people, see if you can get in the lab. Don't be afraid to try new things. When I was in graduate school, one of my fellow graduate students, she really liked doing a specific kind of test, and she didn't want to do anything but that test. And that's not a good attitude to have, So go and try and learn as much as you can. Go to try and do things. When I got my job here at Microban, I had never done anything like this before, and I didn't know any of the tests that were done, and I didn't know anything. And the lab manager at the time, he said, well, we're not looking for somebody who knows how to do all the tests. We're looking for somebody who can learn how to do all the tests. And I think that's really important, when you go in, that you're just, you show you're willing to learn and try new things. And don't be afraid to fail, because, you're going to, and that's okay. And I can't tell you how many experiments I've screwed up because I missed something, and that's okay, but you never do it again, and because you just learn from it. So I think that's the most important thing. Just be willing to ask questions and be willing to learn new things.
Yeah, that's great. And I agree 100%. Definitely, you need that willingness in a lab setting, especially, again, as I keep mentioning, when you come out of college, if you are coming into that kind of tech role, you are going to be very hands-on in the beginning. You might be running, again, my first job, I ran essentially the same tests in that pharma industry. You're pretty much testing the same thing over and over again. So you do need to be comfortable kind of getting into that routine, doing similar things all the time. But then, yeah, as Kate mentioned, kind of learning to show your interest in learning new methods. And if you're working with a chemist too, on your shift, kind of start seeing what they're doing, understand what they're doing, get their feedback, and also then they can kind of show you the ropes a little bit with that kind of stuff. But just definitely explore the different areas. Being in our field, you really simplify it down when you just talk about chemistry and microbiology. I mean, those are so broad. So really kind of try and narrow down the industry that you do want to work in. Again, if you hate your lab classes, you don't want to work on the benchtop, coming in as a tech is 100% not for you. So just make sure you kind of know what you're getting into. I really didn't have that great idea when I came in, just because, again, my research, my post-grad research in college was very synthetic chemistry driven, meaning I really was doing the mixing chemicals together, producing compounds. That for the majority of roles, again, I'm speaking from the chemistry side, you are kind of coming into that quality assurance, quality control kind of atmosphere. So if that's something, again, that you don't like doing repetitive tests, stuff like that, then it's not going to be for you. So yeah, definitely do your research on kind of that position and what you want to do, how you want to work. I hope that makes sense.
I think the comments that everybody had were fantastic. A couple of just a little bit more practical. So do everything you can, and Sarah said this, to make sure that you have experience. Get as much experience as you can. Beat the bushes. Reach out to your network on LinkedIn. If you can, get internships over the summer. I interned at Procter & Gamble both my summers in college, and I think that was a big help to me. And the way Procter & Gamble does certain things like safety, it's just non-negotiable. It certainly helps me in all my other jobs, and I kind of almost went a safety route because of some of the stuff I learned at Procter & Gamble. So get those internships, because you're going to be competing against people for jobs that have internships. And if you, it's not bad, but if you have worked at, back home at the ice cream shop, okay, great, you had a job, but you're not getting the experience that people that are competing for those same jobs are going to have. The other thing I'll say from a practical standpoint, I mentioned this already, make sure you have your LinkedIn page up to date and it looks sharp, it looks clean. Proofread your resume and make sure somebody else proofreads your resume. I get probably 90% of the resumes that I read have some kind of error in it, and that makes me slightly crazy. If you're not going to take care of your resume, why are you going to take care of my data? Why are you going to take care of my documents? The other thing is clean up your social media pages. We always check social media for anybody that we hire to make sure there's nothing out there. Google your own name, to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row. Because companies will do this. And the other thing, make sure your GPA is really where it needs to be. A lot of companies have a default, and if you don't have a certain GPA, they're not even going to look at your resume. So those are just the little more practical things that you can do while you're still in school to make sure that you kind of come up to the top of the list. And then the other thing Kate hit on, communication. You know, if your parents have friends that work at companies, if you know somebody, if your aunt works at a company, see if you can get an internship there. You know, reach out, even if it's not exactly in the field you want to be, you're going to get some experience, and you get to experience the work world, which is very different from from the university world. So do things that are going to make you kind of look really good when companies go to look at you when you graduate.
All right. Fantastic advice, everyone. I just checked our question list, and I don't think anything additional came through. Quick question before we wrap up to my panelists. Would you all be comfortable if our students reached out and connected with you on LinkedIn if they had any further questions or wanted to follow up on anything?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for spending your lunchtime with us, sharing your experiences and such valuable information. We really appreciate your time, and thanks for, again, virtually lunching and learning. And students, if you want access to this, we are going to record this or submit the recording on YouTube, so keep an eye out on that. All right, everyone, thank you again. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll be in touch.
You too. Good luck, everybody.
Bye.